Director Patel, when you called Donald Trump the most honest president in American history, did you actually believe it? The room froze, but Amy Klobuchar wasn't finished. Because I'm wondering whether you'd like to tell the American people exactly what you and this administration have been hiding regarding the Epstein-related documents. For a moment, Patel didn't move. 3 minutes later, the hearing was spiraling completely out of his control. And what happened in the next 3 minutes would shake the entire hearing room to its foundation. But first, there's something you need to know about what she said before the cameras even started rolling. The Senate Judiciary Committee hearing room was packed beyond capacity. Veteran Capitol Hill reporters, who had covered confirmation hearings for decades later, said they had never seen an atmosphere quite like that morning. Something was different. You could feel it the moment Klobuchar entered. She moved with the quiet certainty of someone who had already won, because she had spent weeks preparing for exactly this moment. Patel, for his part, looked like a man who had just conquered Rome, confident, relaxed, his dark suit immaculate, his American flag pin catching the light. He had already weathered questions from multiple senators. He had deflected, pivoted, and survived. His legal team sat behind him like an armor wall, briefcases stacked with executive privilege memos and pre-prepared non-answers. What they didn't have was a defense against the truth. Critics had already linked Patel to some of Washington's most explosive political controversies, from election disputes to growing public questions surrounding the handling of Epstein-related documents, questions that still had not gone away. But before she reached for a single document, she leaned into the microphone and delivered the opening that no one in that room expected. Her voice was calm, almost surgical. "Director Patel," she began, "I want to ask you something before we get to the record." She paused just long enough for the cameras to zoom in. "When you stood before the American people and called Donald Trump the most honest president in American history, did you feel any shame at all?" Patel's expression flickered, just for a fraction of a second. A micro-expression that experienced political observers recognized instantly as panic, quickly masked, quickly buried. But Klobuchar wasn't finished with the opening blow. "Because right now," she continued, her voice dropping lower, "I'm wondering whether you'd like to tell this committee, and the American people, exactly what you and this administration have been hiding regarding the Epstein-related documents, right here, right now, on the record." The silence that followed lasted exactly 4 seconds, and if Patel thought that question was the worst thing he would hear that morning, he was about to be very disappointed, because Klobuchar had spent weeks collecting something far more dangerous than accusations. She had his own words. 4 seconds where the most powerful law enforcement official in the country had no answer. 4 seconds that felt like an earthquake in slow motion. Klobuchar let it breathe. Then she opened her folder. "Mr. Patel," she said, her voice now carrying the measured precision of a former prosecutor. "The FBI runs on facts. It runs on truth. You said that yourself today, so let's talk about truth." She slid a document to the center of her desk. "Did you say, and I'm quoting directly, that Donald Trump has every right to tell the world that the 2020, 2016, and every other election in between was rigged by our government?" Patel shifted in his chair. "I don't have that statement in front of me." August 27, 2023. Thrive Time Show. Klobuchar's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "I'll put it on the record." She looked up at him slowly. "Those claims were rejected by courts, including by Republican judges. Is that correct?" Patel's jaw tightened. Every answer seemed to create a new problem. The more Patel talked, the deeper he sank. At times it almost felt as though the hearing wasn't helping him explain his record. It was helping Klobuchar build the case against it. "I don't have enough of the facts in front of me." "You don't have the facts." She repeated it quietly, almost to herself, as if she couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. "The FBI director doesn't have the facts." She made a small note on her legal pad. Around the room, reporters' fingers flew across keyboards. Republican staff members exchanged uneasy glances. But here's what nobody in that room knew yet. This was only the first document. She had 12 more. Klobuchar moved without hesitation. She had timed this to the second. "Did you post on your personal social media account in May of 2024, January 6th, never an insurrection, cowards in uniforms exposed. They broke the chain of command." Patel tried to deflect. "I believe you're referencing a post that was shown in part." "You posted it," Klobuchar said flatly. "It was on your account." She turned the next page. "The Capitol police officers who testified before Congress, heroes who defended this building on that day, you accused them of lying." Joe Rogan podcast, March 2024. "We'll put it on the record." Patel's composure cracked at its edges. His hands, previously relaxed on the witness table, had found a pen. He was gripping it, hard. The color at the base of his neck had shifted to something between pink and red. "Director Patel," Klobuchar continued without breaking rhythm, "you promoted a COVID vaccine reversal or detox supplement last year. One scientist described it, and I quote, as preying on innocent people. Did you conduct clinical trials before promoting this product to the American public? The answer came slowly. I'm not a doctor, so, no, but you told people it would reverse or mitigate vaccine side effects. She didn't phrase it as a question. She didn't need to. And then you said you were giving people an opportunity to make an independent choice. She looked directly at him. That's your defense. For a product you promoted without any scientific basis. Patel had no response. The pen in his hand was now completely white-knuckled. And Klobuchar was only at document 4. When Trump wins in 2024, she read aloud, her voice precise and unhurried, and is in power in 2025, we can prosecute them, referring to Justice Department officials, for an actual RICO statute violation, for criminally organizing the United States government to break the law to rig presidential elections. She set the paper down. Did you say that, yes or no? And that contradiction exposed something else. Patel had spent years presenting himself as one of Trump's most loyal defenders, but Washington has seen this story before. Loyalty in politics lasts only until it becomes inconvenient. If Patel truly convinced himself that Trump was the most honest president in American history, he may eventually learn the same lesson many others learned before him. Patel's response was almost inaudible. You're reading a partial statement. X22 Report podcast, she said. Approximately 1 year ago, I'll put the full date on the record. She didn't wait for him to respond. You also said, and I'm going to quote you here, we are going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens who helped Joe Biden rig the elections. We're going to come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly. She paused. That's from Steve Bannon's podcast. Your words, not mine. Patel's mouth opened, then closed, like a man drowning in shallow water who couldn't quite believe there wasn't enough oxygen left in the room. You also said, Klobuchar pressed, not pausing for even a breath, that you would put the entire, and I'm quoting again, fake news mafia press corps on your list. She looked at him with genuine disbelief. You want to be the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and you made a list of journalists you intend to target. For the first time in the hearing, Patel visibly swallowed, an audible public swallow that every camera in that room caught on film. But here is the moment that changed everything. The document Klobuchar had been saving. The one her staff had called the nuclear option. Mr. Patel, she said, her voice suddenly quieter. William Barr, former Attorney General of the United States, appointed by President Trump, called one of the most capable cabinet officials in recent history by members of your own party, is on your deep state list. Is that correct? Patel stiffened. That is a total mischaracterization. You used the words, she interrupted. Deep state, that's what you called it. Your own language. She set her hands flat on the desk. Mr. Barr wrote about you in his own book. He said, in writing, that you would never be able to command the respect necessary to run the day-to-day operations of the Bureau, that you had virtually no experience that would qualify you to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency. She waited. Is he on your list because of a personal vendetta? You're under oath. I have no personal vendetta. He's on your list, she said quietly, because he wouldn't break the law for Donald Trump. That's the reason, isn't it? Patel had no answer that wasn't a confession. The room could feel it. Even the Republican members had stopped looking at him. Critics had long argued that Patel had become a key figure in several high-profile controversies that divided Washington, from election disputes to serious questions surrounding the handling of Epstein-related documents that the American public had been promised and never received. This hearing was supposed to be his moment to reset that narrative, to demonstrate competence, to prove the critics wrong. Instead, he was being destroyed by his own words. Sentence by sentence, podcast by podcast, post by post, and Klobuchar still had one document left. Did you say, she began, and something in her tone signaled that this was the ending blow, that the FBI headquarters should be shut down and reopened as a museum of the deep state? Patel started to open his mouth. Yes or no, she said. You are asking to lead an institution you publicly said should be turned into a museum. The silence stretched for 6 full seconds. 6 seconds where the most powerful law enforcement official in America sat utterly speechless before a Senate Judiciary committee, under oath, on national television. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost its earlier certainty entirely. What came out instead was the last refuge of a man with no more moves left, a speech about his endorsements, about his patriotism, about being on the ground in theaters of war, about 300,000 law enforcement officers who had supported his nomination. Klobuchar let him finish. Then she looked directly at him and delivered the verdict that the entire room had already reached. Mr. Patel, she said quietly, you said the FBI runs on truth, that without truth, the whole system breaks down. She closed her folder. Every word I read today came from your own mouth. Your own accounts, your own podcasts. These are not accusations. These are not mischaracterizations. She paused. These are your words. The room was silent. Not the silence of shock, the silence of completion. Director Patel had walked into that chamber as one of the most powerful nominees in recent American history. He walked out having been taken apart, methodically, precisely, and entirely, by his own record. The FBI's public trust rating sat at an all-time low of 40%. And the man being confirmed to fix that had just spent 3 minutes proving why the number wasn't going up anytime soon. Senator Klobuchar didn't raise her voice once. She didn't need theatrics. She didn't need drama. She had something far more powerful than either of those things. She had his words, every single one of them, documented, time-stamped, entered into the congressional record forever. And here is what nobody is saying out loud, but everyone in Washington is thinking. If you convinced yourself that Trump is the most honest president in American history, Director Patel, here is some unfortunate news. The moment your usefulness ends, the moment the political calculation shifts, that door will close behind you faster than you can say deep state. You will not be the exception. Nobody ever is. Because the men who speak loudest about loyalty are always the first ones to demonstrate exactly what it costs. Now we want to hear from you. Why do you think Trump is still keeping Patel in office? And do you believe Patel is worth more to Trump right now than Pam Bondi? Drop your answer below. Because this question is dividing Washington, and we want to know which side you're on.